So our topic for today is the effort paramita, or Virya Parmita. And here are the few words that I sent out. Virya Parmita means effort, or zeal, or vitality. And Shishin Roshi analyzed the etymology of Virya as it made its way from Sanskrit to Chinese to Japanese, and he came up with this powerful definition: the advancement of single-minded spiritual vigor. When you nurture single-minded spiritual vigor, nothing can stop it, not even a speeding train. So Virya is not only the intention to realize the Buddha way, but the energy is always there to realize that intention. And in his chapter on Fukan Zazengi, which means the universal promotion of the principles of Zazen, Dogen Zenji is translated as saying, after exhaustively searching, the way is basically perfect and all-pervading. How could it be contingent upon practice and realization? And the key part here is after exhaustively searching that single-minded spiritual vigor. Then on the subject, the Buddha said, if you students exert meticulous effort, nothing will be difficult to accomplish. Therefore, you should make an effort to practice carefully. For water, when water flows constantly against a big rock, even a small amount of water will eventually dig out a large hole. But if one who practices becomes lax, it will be impossible to accomplish anything. It's like trying to start a fire by rubbing two sticks together. If you stop rubbing before the wood gets hot, you can't start a fire. This is what's meant by meticulous effort. So, I think it's interesting. Effort shows up here, and I think it's also one of the Eightfold Path of the Buddha, effort. And one is a tricky thing about effort, because we can get our mind tied up in knots about it. Because if you make an effort towards something that you have in your mind that you want to accomplish, like enlightenment, then you're just going to be making this effort towards your picture of enlightenment, which might have nothing to do with enlightenment. So how do we make the right kind of effort? And I remember years ago, I met Soen Nakagawa Roshi, and he's one of the first Japanese Roshis to come to this country. And I had an opportunity for a private conversation with him, and I told him that I was trying my best, and he looked at me, and he spoke English, some English. He looked at me and raised his eyebrows, and he said, "Try." And I thought, well, I have to try, don't I? But his point is that trying to do what? What are we trying to do here? If we don't make any effort, then we won't accomplish anything. If we make the wrong kind of effort, then where are we going to end up? So there's that expression, if you don't change the direction you're heading, you're going to end up where you're heading. And which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we can say that most often, we're just heading to greater and greater suffering and samsara. So we have to make some kind of an effort. And but it's like I say, it's a bit of a conundrum, because if we make effort If we're not making the right kind of effort, then what are we doing? And if we say we don't have to make effort because we're already, Buddhas, that's what we call Bampu Zen. It means don't matter Zen. And that's false understanding. So I pondered this question for a long time, what kind of effort to make. And what I came up with is the effort that I made in my practice is to let go of whatever I don't need, whatever's unnecessary in my practice. So I made an effort to let go of things that I didn't need. And guess what? Didn't need anything. So it's just a process of continually letting go. Just letting go, letting go, letting go. In the practice, of course, that's in the practice. In our life, we need all kinds of things, to survive. So it's not that I'm talking about. It's what am I holding on to, And when Dogen was practicing with Tendon Yojo, he told him to drop off body and mind. Drop off body and mind. So we have all kinds of ideas that we're attached to. So what can we let go of everything? This definition is really wonderful. Single-minded spiritual vigor. Single-minded. Single-minded. That means totally focused on our practice, where we're not distracted, where our mind isn't wandering all over the place. And vigor, putting energy into it, where we aren't, no matter what comes up in our life, we're not just deterred from it, we don't deviate from it. And it's so easy to get distracted, there's so many opportunities. Wow. I've got everything here, people spend 10 hours a day with these things, looking at how many people like that last picture I put in there of my teeth, And then, anything you want to know, you can look it up right there, I was just looking up something the other day. I wanted to know, I'm helping Roshi Shinko with a book she's writing about the feminine path, spiritual path in Buddhism, and with her life, essentially, her anecdotes. But, there's things to put in there, like, when did Tantra Buddhism arrive in Tibet, and where did it come from? Just Google it. You have to trust the sources, they're not always accurate. But I'll tell you, I worked for almost 20 years for Encyclopedia Britannica. It's a dinosaur now. I worked for different wholly owned subsidiaries of Encyclopedia Britannica. They always felt that they were authoritative, and something like Wikipedia could, that's not authoritative. There are going to be all kinds of wrong information out there. Well, somebody did a study comparing Wikipedia with Encyclopedia Britannica, and they found that, essentially it's the same degree of authenticity, Wikipedia is free. Who's going to pay $5,000 for, 600 pounds of books, to put on the shelf? But what's even a bigger challenge than Wikipedia? Google. You look up Google, and Wikipedia might be one of the responses you get, but the made Encyclopedia Britannica is totally passé. It used to be a $500 million business, right now, if it's a tenth that size, they're fortunate. And of course, they have an online presence, but they, and the other thing is, it is a dinosaur because it can't respond. Wikipedia, when somebody dies, Robin Williams dies, Wikipedia is updated the next day. You know? Encyclopedia Britannica has to go through these editorial boards, you know, and all these things in order to change it. So.
But at the same time, I couldn't use Wikipedia in my graduate work. They wouldn't let me do that.
Well, it's not yeah, but I think
because it was
as
easy.
a source, but actually Wikipedia will give you references in articles that you can then go to read. But anyway, so I guess I just started talking about distractions. And see where we could go? Yeah. So what kind of effort do we put into our practice, you know? And one of the things that is, I think, vitally important is not to judge or criticize ourselves when we feel we aren't putting enough in, you know? It's easy to do. You know, we put in what we can. You know, we all have different levels of aspiration. And I don't know if you've all read the 3 Pillars of Zen, but there's these introductory talks by Yasutani Roshi where he just talks about what your level of aspiration is, and that determines what your practice is, you know? I mean, not everybody's going to be a Dogen, you know? I mean, you look at through the history of Zen Buddhism, you know, in China in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th centuries, they had, you know, thousands of monasteries with thousands of monks. You know, how many of them, you know, became like Joshus or Umons or Basos, you know, really well known. You know, everybody has a different capacity, but using Virya Parmita as a guideline, we can develop more of our capacity than we think we're capable of doing. It's always available. More is always available to us. But again, you know, we're not monks in monasteries either. You know, so we have to factor that in as well. You know, we just do what we can according to what our situation is. But if we're doing less than what we can according to our situation, then, you know, we need to look at it and reevaluate. Because particularly in this country, most people who practice are what we call homeowners, you know. A home leaver is somebody who's a monk who goes to a monastery, but a homeowner is somebody who has a job, has family, has obligations, you know. So the practice, it's evolving. I think that's one of the beauties of Buddhism, that it turns the culture where it lands, but simultaneously it's turned by the culture where it lands. So there's a feedback, you know, and it's adapting, you know, to what the culture is. Is it being diluted? Well, not necessarily, you know. I mean, look at the 6th patriarch. He had a deep realization, and he was, you know, a manual laborer, cutting branches off trees to sell them for wood in the marketplace. So, you know. Anyway.